Well, we're definitely live on the Dean Blundell Substacks. That's good enough for me. Hi, Dean. How are you?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. My name is Dean. That is Zev, recently from the Five Stack podcast. But today is a very special day. So, for anybody that's been paying attention, the heat between the United States and Canada, all time high. That has been smoothed over since the election of Mark Carney. We'll get to the odds and the ends, but Mark Carney is officially paying a visit to the White House. I think because the criminal president can't get into Canada.
Oh,
So we
yours
had
to
to
the
take the
digs.
party to him, but this is the very first meeting face to face of two leaders of two sovereign nations that have had a history before. I believe Carney and Donald Trump have met at least once or twice, from my understanding. And Carney is showing up with a team, and it is one message, one voice. That team will not be saying anything, but here we go. It looks like Mark Carney is getting ready to pull up, Zev,
Yes, he does,
which
because you can
is
tell by the guards that have arrived there carrying the stars and stripes and the Canadian flag, each of them. All the ceremony is very, very planned out every time they do one of these events. And so we should be minutes away, if that, from the arrival of Carney. He's a little late, actually. The whole thing was meant to start at 11:15, but I think he's okay.
Can we just pay attention to that one comment? By the way, he's a little late. I don't think that's by accident.
You think he's just like, oh, I had things to do this morning, wasn't ready for you, too
Yeah.
busy doing other things.
Well, yeah, like Trump hates being told to wait, and Putin likes to make him wait hours for phone calls. And I think this is a bit of a power move to start off, if you ask me. Maybe it's the conspiratorial side of me, or the pro-Canadian side of me, or the nationalistic side of me. But I think Mark Carney's intentionally late. This is not the kind of
You
meeting.
may not be able to read that because Trump is in charge of the schedule. So what happens is they park them, they keep them in the little guest house down the street,
Yeah.
down the road, and so they have pre-meets there and they get ready there, and then when they're ready, they send them over. So so I think it might be that Trump is a little late. I don't know if Carney's a little late. I just don't want to give people the wrong impression, but it could be. Can't imagine Carney arriving late for a meeting with the president of the United States or
No,
with anybody,
well,
really. I mean, he's just not that kind of
yeah.
dude. But there's a lot
Well,
at stake
they
today.
said it was supposed to start at 11:30. Were they not?
It's
Like
true.
that.
That's true.
Yeah.
So we got 8 minutes, right? You're right.
Kind of
Maybe
early.
we'll just talk about the stakes a little bit here, because there are significant stakes. Obviously, I mean, there's a lot riding on this meeting. Trump has been fairly cordial about Carney, although we keep seeing these interviews with his administration officials, which are anything but complimentary. I mean, yesterday was it?
Lutnick.
Keep saying his name wrong now.
Nutlick. Yeah. Howard
Um,
Nutlick I believe is his name.
Yeah, no, it's not his name, but Lutnick
I think it is.
Lutnick is his name, and
Hey, potato, dude.
he was on Fox News, and he was not very complimentary about Canada. Certainly didn't think he wanted anything from Canada. Now, obviously, this is their way of setting up for negotiations, because this is the way the Trump administration does things: is sort of bombastically and bullying and thinking this is a mob negotiation. They don't seem to understand diplomacy. You don't need to do this. We understand that you don't, there's no need to come to the table wanting to shoot us or threatening to shoot us. But this is the way, the Trump administration runs. So you've got to sort of maybe ignore those comments. But from his part, Carney has come prepared with a lot. I mean, he seems to have a bunch of deals in place. He says, what is it? A comment he said something about don't expect any white smoke from this meeting.
Yeah. Don't expect white smoke. That's not here. That's at the Vatican. He made a reference to that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not going to be surrender, is what he's saying. It's going to be a very serious set of conversations, and we shall see what happens at the end of it all. I mean, they do one of these things that Trump does a lot of, which is allow people to come in and then they talk to the press before the meeting, which, as we know, has considered. Some people think of that as a bit of an ambush in some ways, like it happened with Zelensky and happened with many others. The NATO Secretary General Rutte, and also, I think you could also say Keir Starmer's meeting was a little
Starmer,
like that.
Macron. They tried to run Macron's show too. Zelensky's was the worst. I mean, I was watching some pre-chat about it on CBC this morning, and John Bolton was like, "That was a fucking unmitigated disaster." Hopefully, it's not that. And I think we kind of talked about it yesterday. And there's a couple things I think that are worth noting as we prepare for Mark Carney to arrive. Welcome everybody. My name is Dean. That is Zev. We're carrying the Trump versus Carney press conference live. on narrative.org and, of course, my Substack. But let's just set the table a little bit because this meeting is 2 months in the making. Mark Carney, of course, winning an election that Donald Trump helped influence. Donald Trump also yesterday said that he took credit for Carney not only winning, but he also took credit for Carney not getting a majority, whatever the fuck that means. I mean, he's all over the place congratulating himself about Mark Carney's success. He's probably going to take some credit for that today, too. But what's riding on this? What's riding on this for Canada is, strengthening our economy. What's riding on this for Canada is, the reassertion, face-to-face assertion that Canada in no way, shape, or form is going to become the next 51st state. We are a sovereign country. That is going to be a statement that will be made over and over and over again. So for Canada, much less riding on this, other than, of course, getting some tariffs removed. And of course, if there's a deal to be had, I think that's in Canada's best interest too. But that's not the intention of this meeting, as far as I understand it, from Mark Carney's group. The intention of this meeting is for Mark Carney to show up, Mark Carney to conduct the room, conduct the interview, and for Mark Carney to shake hands and meet the man who's currently trying to destroy the free world, who has been threatening Canada. This is FaceTime. This is, hey, you want to do that behind my back or on television? Let's do this to my face. So what's riding on him for the United States? Very, very different set of circumstances. They are alone in the world when it comes to trade and economy. They have been shut out, basically embargoed from doing business with certain countries that are slowly going to whittle away in the next couple of weeks any consumer confidence that might be left. He has no deals on the table with any country. He has lied about every single one of them. It is all fiction and fantasy, and he's also lied about the premise of this meeting. Donald Trump did call Mark Carney. Donald Trump did ask Mark Carney to come to the White House. I think it's a little early. I think a lot of people think that, but Mark Carney obliged, and he said, okay, I'll come down and we'll talk, and we'll see where the chess pieces are, and then we'll try to figure something out. But the relationship with Canada, as he asserted the day after he won the election to the BBC reporter that conducted that masterful interview, is, hey, listen, the nature of the relationship is over, and Trump needs a win. And I think that is something that is going to govern his behavior in this meeting. I think the sycophants that he surrounds himself with might try to poke holes. I think you're going to see some, Alberta sovereignty or Alberta separatist, comments and shots at Mark Carney. I think you're going to see some woke stuff. I think you're going to see J.D. Vance act the fool today a little bit. But I think Trump is going to mind his P's and Q's, because the only thing he wants is to look like he is doing an incredible job. His numbers are so underwater. He's down 20 points in every approval rating. He's toast. So this is so important to him, much more important to him than it is to Canada or Mark Carney today, Zev, in my estimation.
I think you're absolutely right. Look, Trump has a lot riding on this meeting, and Carney is really coming in as the leader of the free world in a way. He represents all the other countries that are opposed to MAGA. So, if Carney comes up with a deal, the rest of the world might come up with a deal. We'll see. Certainly China is still holding out, and that's the biggest problem they have in their so-called, agenda here. But I think what we're seeing is Trump needing a deal, as you point out correctly. I think that he's going to be a bit of a bully at the top. He's going to try, force his way into some sort of masterful, dominant position. But at the end of the day, he needs a deal way more than Canada needs a deal. Canada's already negotiated alternative trade deals with a variety of countries, with countries in Europe, with countries in Asia, and it will continue to have plenty of resources and also a plan that allows them to make up any of the trade deficit that might arise, or any of their losses, I should say, from the lack of trade with the United States. They can make that up with the removal of free trade in between provinces in Canada, which is part of Carney's plan. There's been all sorts of tariffs and taxes and between provinces, and they're going to make it a free trade zone, I should say, just to explain it a little bit more clearly, allowing products to move more freely between those countries. And Carney estimates that will make up more than they will lose with the U.S. Trade tariffs being introduced in the way they are. So there's definitely a confidence in the way Carney's walking in. He's got a plan to meet this moment. It doesn't look to me like Trump has any real options here. He has to come up with a deal because his economy is so desperate for a little bit of a bump here, and they need to maintain this very important relationship. They need all these things, despite the fact that they say they don't need anything from Canada. Truthfully, they really need things. They need the lumber. They don't have enough forests. They need, if they want to build houses, they need lumber. They have rare earth minerals that they need, and those are only available from Canada and China to a large extent. So if you don't have them coming from China right now, you need them coming from Canada. And there's a lot more. You can go on and on. However, the tariffs have been very, very restrictive, and that is challenging Canadians, which are normally so comfortable with the relationship with the United States, so friendly with the United States. These 25% tariffs that have been introduced have really hurt this relationship, and that's another key factor that they'll need to sort out today, is how they're able to build and mend fences between these two nations that have become, frenemies of late. I can't hear you. I can't hear you for some reason. You're on mute. I think you're on mute. No? I don't know. Oh, you've gone. You were on mute. I guess you're going to come back. I'll keep talking. Look, this is a remarkable moment. A few weeks ago, we would have seen a very different relationship here with Trudeau. Trudeau was not the same leader as Carney, and certainly that was a very different take. Hey, you there?
Yeah, back.
Hi. No, you're there. I heard you, and then you disappeared.
I'm coming back. I'll be right back.
No, you're back. You're back. I can hear you now. Oh, well, who knows? Sorry about that. It's live TV with a one-man studio, so this is what you get. You get a little bit of this back and forth. But it's okay. We're happy to have you here. A lot of people showed up for the live stream, and we're thankful you're here. We'll take your comments as well. If you've got things you want to say, go ahead and say those things to us in these chats, and we'll share them with everybody. Hey, Dean, how you doing?
Hey guys, I'm back. Yeah, it's nice to see you. Sorry, I got a phone call right in the middle of that, and that always buggers me up. I should probably turn that function off right now.
At some point, yeah, that might be a good idea. Hey, anybody in the chat who wants to say things? Catherine Weinstock says, "I hope all the countries of the world gang up against the imbecilic orange bully. Sorry, surely Trump is not a match for Carney. I mean, he is not a match for Carney. Carney's one of the most respected people in the world. He's a great economist, has a terrific background, and has run both the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. He's now the Prime Minister. He received more votes than anybody else. Did they win more votes than anybody in any previous election or something like that? I heard something remarkably interesting about that fact.
Yeah, Mark Carney garnered the most votes of any prime minister to ever win an election ever. His party did, which was incredible. No, not a majority. Which I think, and it's funny because I think we'll watch Trump sort of take credit for that, but I think that was the Canadian people saying, okay, yeah, we are tired of liberal governance, but if we're going to have to hold our nose, specifically conservative NDP voters, maybe some Green and Independents, if we're going to have to hold our nose and have a liberal government again, at the very least, we know we have the best the best chief for the job, which is Mark Carney. So that was really more about voting Mark Carney in and putting the party on notice to deal with some issues in Canada, like affordability is an issue in Canada. Immigration is an issue in Canada. And Mark Carney is incredibly conservative, even though socially he's very progressive. So, I think that, being able to see how important this was to Canadians, and that vote count really talked about how important this election was to Canadians based on the fact that we are being threatened threatened with forcible takeover is what I was trying to say. By a complete fucking moron. So who has the keys to, unlimited power? And I think Canadians really kind of decided, hey, listen, we're going to hold our nose and vote for the Liberal Party again, but they also can see the forest through the trees. Like Mark Carney is a very, very, very serious individual. Mark Carney is unafraid of hard conversations with anybody. It doesn't matter who the world leader is, doesn't matter if they're the CEO of BlackRock. Mark Carney has the distinct ability to be able to conduct a conversation from a position of strength. And to your point, we've talked about it a couple times, that's why he's going. He's going because he doesn't need to do a deal. And he said that and reiterated it in his first press conference last week, where he said, hey, it might take time, and that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. Canada has other things to do. This meeting isn't about helping Canada. This meeting isn't about solving any problems for Canada. This meeting is about a strained relationship, to which Donald Trump decided to strain this relationship for his own personal edification and tributes and bribes. And he's done that with 195 countries around the world, with the exception of Russia and China and North Korea. So, this is more about a tone-setting conversation for a guy like Mark Carney. And I'm interested in one thing today, because I know there's not going to be a deal. I'm interested in the vibe in the Oval Office, right? That's what I'm really looking forward to. It's all about vibe for me. What is the tone that Donald Trump delivers? Which version of Trump? Is it the Trump version that is, in the back of his mind, he knows that he's desperate for some kind of win, or the perception of some kind of win? And is he going to manage himself? Or are we going to see the laughing hyenas behind him crack stupid jokes? And on the other side of that, if that does happen, how will Carney respond? I've heard from different people that he's just not going to put up with it if it turns into a Zelensky type circus. There's the option for him to tell everybody we're leaving and walking out. But after the Oval Office meeting, there are two other events. You got a working lunch in the Roosevelt Room, and then I believe there's a press conference after, with both men at the lectern, as opposed to sitting in the Oval Office. But this Oval Office is really Trump's bully pulpit. We've noticed anything about some of his meetings with world leaders, and I expect there to be some light bullying as well. But it really depends on whether or not Donald Trump is actually serious about getting a win. And if he is, Mark Carney greased that track a little bit yesterday. He was asked about Donald Trump, and he was like, he's an excellent negotiator.
Look, I think that what the Carney's team is really worried about is an ambush like Zelensky's ambush. I think that's the thing that they're most concerned about. There was some rumors that they would be unhappy about Vance being there. I doubt they're unhappy about Vance being there. I think that whatever happens in there, they're prepared for it. And I think even if anything happens that is disrespectful to the sovereignty of Canada, even if it's meant in a lighthearted way, I think Carney has set a red line and said, we're not going to let you do that. If you disrespect us, you disrespect our sovereignty, you talk about Canada's 51st state, they might walk out. I don't see them taking that very lightly. It's been a tremendous campaign that Musk and Trump have been doing on Canada, and it essentially cost us potentially the previous Prime Minister Trudeau. I mean, they took out a really important person in Canada's political scene. So regardless of the fact that this might be humor for them, it has real world implications. And I think Mark Carney wants to set a tone that is very serious, that really understands the moment, which is that potentially, what happens here can change the course of history. It's not an understatement to say that. Whatever happens here could determine whether we have a war. It determines whether the US dollar could remain the dominant currency in the world. And these are all very, very important issues. So, it's a serious meeting. It's a serious conversation. I don't think they're going to take any of Trump's joking around, and I don't think they're going to be taking any intimidation from either Vance or anybody else like Zelensky faced the other day. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't think Carney is the kind of dude who's going to sit around and let that happen to him.
No, he's not at all. And I was chatting with someone who's aware of the plan, and there is a very serious plan to go in, to introduce, to shake hands, to present himself to the Trump regime, and to set a tone. And that tone, and deliver a message, by the way, and the message is that personal message that he's delivered 32 times in public. Our relationship is over. We got to reimagine as we're sitting here watching the Reuters feed of the Trump White House as Mark Carney gets ready to do battle with Donald Trump. But like I said before, the plan is very, very simple. It is the conversation to be had about reimagining a new relationship. Because, as I said before, the old one's over. And that'll be reiterated again today. So it's really actually in America's court, right? Canada's tucked in. We're good. We're going to move forward with literally building out Canada into a superpower of energy and raw materials. We literally have deals in hand with the EU and several other countries. We literally are not going there because we need to. We don't. We don't. Our economy is starting to slow because of what the United States is doing, but the United States is about to go through some things, and this is all Donald Trump's doing. And so, Mark Carney is really feeling it out today, in as much as he's delivering a message and kickstarting the process of reimagining the relationship that we have with the United States. But listen, there's two schools of thought when it comes to saying our relationship with the United States is over. It's like, hey, this isn't good for us in Canada, and all Americans aren't bad people. Well, we know that. But, if you want to change things, you need to make people uncomfortable. And so part of that is a strategy, I believe, that the Carney administration is walking in with, which is, we'll listen, but in no way is there an olive branch here today. All it is everything has changed, reimagine the relationship, see where we can fit you in, and we'll see if there's any business to be done. And all of that has to be predicated on removing all tariffs. Those are the only good tariffs, or no tariffs. And if that doesn't happen, I don't think Mark Carney and the government of Canada are in a position to say, well, let's continue to talk, because those are the first things that have to happen with any deal that Canada makes with the United States. Is all of those tariffs have to be removed.
Well, I mean, I think this is the first of many meetings. I don't think this is going to be a day where they arrive and at a solution here. But I think everybody needs a deal quickly, because Trump needs a deal quickly. His economy is tanking. He's got issues around empty store shelves coming up within weeks. Everyone's saying July could be a very horrible month in America, where people are not going to be able to get the things that they're used to getting simply because of these tariffs. So Trump needs a deal. He doesn't want to walk into the second half of his first year with empty store shelves. I mean, looking, with an America looking like Cuba, it's not anything he wants to deal with right now. I mean, he might want the other stuff, like the US dollar crashing. That might be something he wants, but he certainly doesn't want the empty store shelves. And the comments about the $2 versus the $2 or $3 versus the $20 or $30. I mean, that's about as un-American as you can imagine.
Not very entrepreneurial, is it? When he's telling,
I mean, what happened to capitalism and the free market and everyone having a go at it? So I think he's beginning to make ludicrous arguments to justify the position he's put Americans and American businesses in. It's not something that the Americans are going to stand for, I don't think. So at the end of the day, he has to have a deal. But Canada also needs a deal. There are thousands of people whose jobs are on the line in Canada right now. We've seen already some shutdowns of auto plants right now. So, those jobs are not necessarily coming back. We don't know what's going to happen. Sure, Carney says he's got a plan to replace those jobs. He's got a plan to replace those sectors. But we haven't seen those jobs materialize yet. That's a plan so far. Mm-hmm. And he might know what he's doing, and we might have faith in him. That's one thing. But to say that, this is not, that Canada doesn't have anything riding on here is not true. Canada has a lot riding on this. No one wants.
Oh, I'm not saying we don't. I'm not saying we don't have something riding on this. And I know having relations, economic and security relationships go back to normal would be the ultimate goal for everybody involved, right? Because Canada's economy is suffering. Donald Trump's economy is suffering. But he doesn't care. And I think that's really the big difference here. And so, being able to diversify as this government has over the past, I would say, month and a half, and the intention behind that diversification means there's less pressure to get something done today, but and there's less pressure to get something done that's not beneficial to this country. I mean, nobody understands more that Donald Trump is full of shit. That Donald Trump, this is a vanity play. It's a bribery play. It is a monetary play. It is reimagining his own, pseudo expertise when it comes to the economy. Then, like, no one knows Donald Trump is more of a fucking fraud than Mark Carney. Guy's a real economist, like a master economist. He's a professor of economics. I know people that he taught when he was a professor. And one gentleman who I watched actually the hockey game with the other night, and he said, "Dude, this man is so smart, and he is so adept at conversations and educating people, and he is so calm that even if something was riding on it for Canada, he'll make it look like it doesn't matter." And I think that that's one of his superpowers, right? Is
Yeah.
not only do you take him seriously, but he is the coolest cucumber in a jam.
He looks
Always
very
has been.
he looks very nice and friendly, and people say that about him. But they also say about him that he's a bit of a killer
Yeah.
in negotiations. I mean, he may not show it publicly, but as he did with the bonds sell-off that he did soon after these tariffs were first announced. I mean, there's a killer instinct in Mark Carney that is very un-Canadian in some ways, and in fact, it's a little more British than it is Canadian, and it'll be interesting to see how Trump faces up against that style of politicking, because Carney's is not new. He's done a lot of this kind of stuff before. He's certainly been in front of every world leader in the world in his previous roles.
He's been in some high test moments. Zev.
Yeah, and he's worked with big, like was it Brookfield that he worked for?
Yeah.
Is a powerhouse of a company run by some big royal families. They have some expectations, they have some needs, and so it's not surprising to see that he's able to go toe to toe with world leaders in the way that he's done with Trump. But he still keeps his good graces, he keeps his good humor, and that's good because that is a very Canadian thing. But I also think Canadians are so sick and tired of this anti-Canadian thing that Trump is trying to institute in America, which is, the furthest thing away from the truth. I mean, Canadians love Americans, Americans love Canadians. We've had a fantastic relationship on both sides of the border for a long time. So suddenly, Donald Trump arriving and saying, 51st state and all this other stuff is so weird. It's so out of left field. It doesn't speak to reality at all. And so it's trying to create this kind of animosity that we saw Putin try to create with Ukraine for many years, that kind of like hostility that wasn't, although in that case, there's actually history to be hostile over. Here, there's none of that really exists. So you can, yell and scream about how bad Canada is, but Canada's not bad. There's nothing bad right now, at least comparable to any other nation in the world. You'd think that they're the angels of the world. So to label them as the enemy of Americans is probably the most ridiculous thing in the entire world. But it does speak to what his real motivations are, which is about resources, and it's about empire building, and it's about expansionism and a destruction of the American democracy. And that's, I think, where the real the real tension is, and that Canadians are not willing to give in on. I mean, Canadians are not going to give in on their belief in democracy, on their belief in freedom. And it might be different than in the United States, but they're not giving up on that.
Yeah, no, and listen, it was an amazing 3 months lead up to the general election, watching the tide turn. And you mentioned something earlier, which I think is really going to be an important part of this conversation, is the perception of Canada on the world stage, specifically with the Americans. When Donald Trump picked a fight with Canada and threatened to invade Canada, he didn't threaten to invade a country Americans were not familiar with. He didn't threaten to invade faraway land. He threatened to invade a country that has enjoyed this beautiful brotherhood and sisterhood with for a couple hundred years. And Americans love Canada, like absolutely love Canada. And I'll put this on Front Street. Yesterday, an example of how much Americans love Canada. I get a phone call from Santa Cruz, Texas, and the lady on the other end asked about a charge on her visa because, our Substacks, you can get a hold of us. It's just kind of part of the deal. It's accountability. If you're a paid subscriber, you can somehow get a hold of us. So woman called, asked about it, and she asked who I was, told her. I said, I run a little media company, Crier Media. I do a couple of podcasts with my friend Zev. And she goes, oh, is this Substack? And I go, yes, it is. She goes, are you Dean Blundell? I said, I am. She goes, oh, my God, honey. Her name was Emily Rose. She says, oh, my God, honey, I love you. And I'm so sorry for what Donald Trump is saying about you and doing to your beautiful country. We've come to Canada every year for 43 years. She just lost her husband.
Oh, my gosh.
Now she's retired. And she's like, I love talking to Canadians. And we had a 15-minute conversation. And this was an American woman reaching out saying, all of our friends don't understand it because we've been in love with Canada for 70 years. We're still in love with Canada. Nobody down here wants Donald Trump to do anything to your beautiful country, and I'm so sorry. And I reached out. I go, hey, you don't have to be sorry to us. We're good. We elected a smart guy.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh my God, I love Mr. Carney. She was way up on Canadian politics. And so what I think we forget to understand here in Canada, I think a lot of people, this is about Carney and Trump. This is also about Canada versus the United States. But the vast majority of democracy loving Americans want Mark Carney to walk into that Oval Office today and tear a strip off Donald Trump. They
Right.
want
Good
Mark
point.
Carney in Canada to win today. So this isn't just, and that's weighing heavily on the Trump regime too. His approval ratings. I don't know if you've seen the latest. He's
Trump's
down
approval rating is no, I haven't.
toilet.
Yeah.
Just in the like a couple weeks ago is historic. It's historically lower than historic right now. And so that is going to factor into this is the will of the American people and the American people and their identification and perception of their relationship with the United States. Trump's approval rating on top of that, this needs to go very, very, very well for Donald Trump. And the Trump regime almost has to grovel today to win back any support for this regime, any approval rating points, because it's over. Like, not just the relationship with Canada as it was, but his relationship with the American people is over as well.
I think that point is so. By the way, a great story about your fan.
She
your
was
listener.
so sweet, dude. She was so
What's
nice.
her name again?
Emily Rose. Talked to
Hi,
her for
Emily.
a solid
Hi, Emily
15.
Rose.
Hi, you lovely lady, you.
It's so nice. One of the things that I love most about doing the Substack stuff with you is, firstly, it's been such an incredible community and such lovely people, but also this building of a crossover audience that is Canadians and Americans who are really in tune with each other, who really have the same value system, despite what the person in the White House might believe. The camera's shifting position here, so we might be seeing Carney's motorcade arrive soon. But I think that there's something so important that's been built here in this thing that we're doing, Dean, is that Canadians and Americans feel the same way about so much. That isn't necessarily reflected in the media all the time, especially not the American media. And so to have a place like ours, Narativ and the Dean Blundell Substack, where they can just come in and share a community and coverage
awesome.
that is fair and truthful and shares the same values is just amazing. And we thank you all for your support. It's been really terrific that you've welcomed us with such open arms and supported us in the way that you have. And we'll continue to be here doing that for a while, hopefully.
Yeah, we're going to do our best. It's been an education, to say the least, on what community is, and being able to reach outside your silo, outside your country, and join a community of, I think there's 65 million people on Substack that take conversations like this seriously, and to be able to physically talk to people. Because it's always us versus them, right? Like, that's what's really this whole thing is all about for Donald Trump. It's us versus everybody, and we're the victims, and we need to tune everybody in. Well, that facade's fallen off, and the American people recognize that they're not victims, specifically real Americans. Even Trump voters are now recognizing that they've been had. And in no way, shape, or form does Canada have any animus towards the United States of America. We love Americans. And so, to have that conversation yesterday and contextualize the beauty of the relationship between these two countries and the people in these two sovereign countries and wanting to remain sovereign countries, and the disrespect that was shown us by Donald Trump, and how the American people, 300 million American people, rallied for Canada. And the congratulatory notes and messages that I received after Mark Carney won the election. Not that I had anything to do with it, but it was more of a, we're so jealous. Congratulations. Way to reject the horse shit. Thank you so much. MAGA's bad enough. We don't need Maple MAGA on top of us. So it was truly remarkable, being able to connect with people. And it gives you perspective, too, when you think about it. Just waiting now for Mark Carney to pull up. You're watching the 5-Stack special edition, Mark Carney versus Donald Trump.
Dean,
meeting is about to happen.
I don't want to interrupt you, but someone just on the chat was saying that Aaron Parnas is reporting that Trump said something inflammatory ahead of this meeting. And I don't know if anyone has access to that message or what exactly Trump said. And you can post it in the chat, because I have not been able to find it, but if anyone else can find it, that would be very useful. There's Donald Trump now, President of the United States, number 47, and number 5, of course. Let's turn up the sound here and take a listen. He's late, He's late. I mean, this is not what they said they were going to do. It's 25 minutes late.
I wouldn't doubt it if he's late on purpose. There he is. Look at that idiot. Sitting there. The birds are chirping at the White House, which is kind of nice. The Canadian flag is being flown right side up.
Does the thumbs up for everybody. The guards are at salute, and that means that we should be seeing the motorcade arriving, and there it is. That is a American-made car, I think, or maybe it's Canadian. There's Mark Carney right now exiting the vehicle, shaking hands with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Looks cordial.
It's not a weird handshake either. It's not one of those weird handshakes. It was a nice handshake.
Canada, as you meet the new Prime Minister, sir. Do you think the Fed will cut interest rates tomorrow?
So not taking any questions there as they walk in, but we will get, once they're inside the Oval Office, apparently we'll get a look at the first few minutes that they have together. But that looked very friendly and cordial. It was nice to see them in relation to each other. Trump, of course, taller than Carney. And
no one took a swing at anybody. No one did anything bad. It was just a quick hi, how you doing? They waved to the crowd. They walk in. We're getting ready. In 15 minutes? We're going to have the Oval Office press conference. Is that correct? Have you been in the Oval Office? What's it like in there? Because I heard there's going to be like 60 to 70 reporters, and then I heard another reporter go, it's going to be jammed. It'll be like the biggest reception in the Oval Office ever.
They have been doing these things where, and to answer your question, no, I've not been in the Oval Office, and that's one place I have not been in the White House. I've been everywhere else in the White House. I got a really excellent tour from Robert Gibbs in the Obama administration, which is very kind of him to give at the time, walking me through the entire, West Wing. And there's so many interesting. It's a small place, that's not a very large building. There are tiny, cramped offices for most people, unless you're a senior person there. But they do amazing amounts of work, and the cabinet room is certainly a fascinating place to see. But I've not been into the Oval Office itself, but I do know, from the outside looking in, it's big, but it's not so big that it can handle the amount of people that are going to be stuffed in there for this. And what Trump likes to do is create this cauldron kind of environment where they throw as many people as they can in there. So it's a real hotspot. Now, some people thrive in that hotspot. Certainly, Donald Trump thrives in that hotspot. But, and Mark Carney's not going to have a problem there. Other leaders might find it intimidating. They might find it confusing. But Trump likes that environment where you can just pick and choose where everything goes. The White House is spectacular and beautiful, Dean. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Christmas party there, it's a good time. They have a nice Christmas tree.
If I ever get a chance to go to the Christmas party,
not that hard.
Dude, I might not ever be allowed in the United States again because of some of the things I've said about Trump on social media. So if I get to go to a Christmas party at the White House, I'm sure I'll report back as how beautiful it is. I'm sure I will.
They do a nice Christmas party. They got like nice little white ornaments and all sorts of. The white chocolate ornaments that are very yummy, and the band is very nice when you play in. When you walk in, and now people don't hear about this. What we do want to hear about is, what the stakes are. I'm trying to find this comment that Aaron Parnas is reporting.
Yeah, so am I. I can't see it. It's not on his Twitter. I know that Trump did tweet this morning, so this might have something to do with it. He put out a Truth Social post. About 30 minutes ago, he said, quote, "I look forward to meeting the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney." Notice no governor talk there.
Yeah.
I very much want to work with him, but cannot understand one simple truth. Why is America subsidizing Canada by $200 billion a year? That old chestnut, he can't help himself. It's been debunked like 1,000 times, and he's just driving it home. And don't expect him to stop, because he's still talking about how he had the 2020 election stolen from him, by the way. Anyway, in addition to giving them free military protection, it's never happened once, we don't, and many other things. I don't know what those things are. They're no things. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything they have other than their relationship, which hopefully we will always maintain. They, on the other hand, need everything from us. They need everything from us. This is apparently the Parnas thing, too, by the way.
Okay.
They, on the other hand, need everything from us. The Prime Minister will be arriving shortly, and that will be, most likely, my only question of consequence.
There's
no question in there.
It's just a lie, everything he's saying there. I mean, they do actually need the energy. We need the energy. We need the lumber. And I mean, I'm speaking of the United States here. We absolutely need these things. And we need the cars, and we need the support for the auto industry, and we need a good neighbor, and we need all these wonderful things that Canada brings to America. So everything he's saying is just, typically Trump gaslighting and Trump, lying. There's no truth to anything he's saying about not needing the cars or the energies or the lumber. Of course they need it. What he's trying to do is get a better deal. He thinks that, okay, I can get better.
No, he's not even doing that anymore, Zev. I don't even think he's doing that. I think what he's doing is he's trying to save face at this point. I think that's all this is, right?
But the original intent of this whole exercise, if you believe him, was to negotiate a zero trade deficit with Canada, which, it's a stupid thing to do because, of course, America's superpower. It's got lots of, lots more wealth than Canada. It's obviously going to buy more. It's going to have more stuff coming into the country. And they're going to, and of course, they've got the US dollar. So there's always going to be countries like Canada and other countries that want to hoard the US dollar, not hoard them, but certainly keep the US dollar in reserve for various other things that they can invest back into Canada. It doesn't mean that the trade imbalance, is necessarily America losing anything. America doesn't lose very much. America is the biggest superpower in the world, by far the biggest economy in the world, has all the cards in many cases. So it's really kind of funny to see this man of all men play victim here. It's not like the American economy.
A victim over a war he started unnecessarily with the free fucking world, by the way. And let me just back you up a little bit and explain some things to people. Every time Trump says they subsidize Canada, why is America subsidizing Canada by $200 billion a year? Let me explain to you what he doesn't understand. That just means one thing. America buys more from us than we buy from them. They give us more money for our things than we give them money for their things. Very simple equation. So the only way he's going to deal with that trade subsidy, which, by the way, is about $49 billion a year. $49 billion, not $200 billion. Is they buy $49 billion more in goods and services from Canada than we buy from them. The only way to do that is for them to stop spending money up here. That's the only way for them to, or for us to buy more of their shit. Now, their shit is all luxury goods, not stuff we really need. Our shit is all raw materials, stuff they absolutely have to grow crops, to run their cars, to build their houses, like the very fucking basic necessities of life: water, heat, energy, oil, food. Like, if they don't have potash, if they don't have rare earth minerals, they're done. And so when he talks about this stuff, which has been debunked 1,000 times, that the trade imbalance is because they consume more than Canada consumes, that's what this is. It's got nothing else to do with the subsidy. So he's going to ask that question of a fucking master economist in the Oval Office. He is going to get an education today if he harps at that. He is going to get a masterclass education from the world's greatest economist about subsidies and how they work. And if that's what all that happens today in this meeting, it will be worth every single vowel and consonant that comes out of Mark Carney's mouth, because this is on an international stage today. So this could be one of the great fact-checking opportunities you'll ever see around Donald Trump live. That might be really, really cool.
It's what I was saying earlier about, this is him representing the free world. He really is going in there as the spokesman for everybody else right now.
Yeah.
And everybody else is saying, no, thank you to these tariffs. No, thank you to your trade war. Your thinking and logic is flawed. Your the way you've calculated the imbalance is irrational and doesn't make any sense to anybody. And what you're doing is just tanking your own economy and threatening the entire global economy and the US dollar, which is so important to everybody, that we maintain the US dollar as a good currency that's belongs to a democracy and is the currency of choice around the world. So it's really interesting to see you phrase that way. I would love to see Carney explain some facts to Donald Trump, because
in the Oval Office too.
Yes. By the way, you can put up a whiteboard, right? Show some diagrams, explain how this is how the flow of trade works. But this notion about the military, all this stuff. I mean, Canada has fought alongside America in so many wars, and we've lost so many people on both sides. That it's been a natural alliance that has been unquestioned by most Canadians. I don't think they really think twice about it when they need to go and fight alongside their friend and their ally in the United States. They don't think, oh well, I don't want to do that. In most cases, they're right there to support, and we saw that in 9/11. We saw that moment in 9/11 when everyone,
Iraq, Afghanistan,
every single time that Canada needs, America needs some help, Canada's there for it. So it's not like it's.
Do you know how many times America has begged Canada for military help?
I don't know.
I know the number.
What is the number? Six.
We've answered the bell 4 times. We did not answer the bell in Iraq, and there was one other skirmish I don't think we were involved in. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, and this is really the best question, do you know how many times Canada has asked or begged the United States for military help?
I'm guessing 0.
0. Do you know how many times America has won a war that they've started? 0. 0. So, listen. Oh, and Vietnam. We didn't get involved in Vietnam. That was the other one. But where they conscripted their own people and sent them into a meat grinder for no good reason. But listen, bottom line. And I love this tweet because there's legs here. The one where he literally disparaged Canada and Mark Carney 5 minutes before Mark Carney walked into the Oval Office, which we just watched. Is Donald Trump is the kind of guy. He's this guy. And I'm gonna lay out an avatar of what Donald Trump is. He's the kind of guy that when he's in front of you, he is whatever you want. Sure, great, good to have you. And before you show up, he shit talks you in a group of people. And after you show up, he shit talks you in a group of people. When I was on the radio doing a morning show, it was one of the things that I used to like the least about people that did radio is you would not like somebody, you would interview someone and be nice to them in the interview, and then after the interview, it would be over. Okay, here we go. Donald Trump in the Oval Office.
Okay, thank you very much.
Trump and Carney. Little private conversation between the two.
Similar body language, actually. People keep pointing to this body language as being quite important. I don't know if it really is, but it's important.
Carney's leaning right forward.
The mirroring of the body language is actually a very key thing that people tell these experts in body language, tell people like Carney and in his management training courses to mirror the other person's body language. So I think you're going to see some of that if he's doing that. Trump does not look very happy, but then does he ever? But there is a smile from Carney.
He's getting his teeth kicked in around the world right now. His approval ratings in the toilet.
Okay, let's take a listen.
It's a great honor to have Prime Minister Mark Carney with us. As you know, just a few days ago, he won a very big election in Canada. And I think I was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't take vote credit. His party was losing by a lot, and he ended up winning. So I really want to congratulate him. It was probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine. But I want to just congratulate you. That was a great election, actually. We were watching it with interest, and I think Canada chose a very talented person, a very good person, because we spoke before the election quite a few times. And it's an honor to have you at the White House and the Oval Office. And you see the new and improved Oval Office as it becomes more and more beautiful with love. We handle it with great love and 24-karat gold. That always helps too, right? But it's been a lot of fun. We're going over some of the beautiful pictures that were stored in the vaults that were for many, many years, in some cases over 100 years. They were stored in vaults of the great presidents, or almost great presidents, all having a reason for being up, every one of them. So it's very interesting. But I just want to congratulate you, and ran a really great race. I watched the debate. I thought you were excellent, and I think we have a lot of things in common. We have some tough tough points to go over, and that'll be fine. We're going to also be discussing Ukraine, Russia, the war, because Mark wants it ended as quickly as I do. I think it has to end. We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will honor that. And we will stop the bombings. And they have capitulated, but more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore. And that's what the purpose of what we were doing. So that's just news. We just found out about that. So I think that's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going, as you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just the canal. It was a lot of other places. And I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis. Effective immediately, and Marco, you'll let everybody know that, okay? Do you have something to say about that, by the way? It's a pretty big announcement.
Yeah, this was always a freedom of navigation mission. These guys, these are, a band of individuals with advanced weaponry that were threatening global shipping, and the job was to get that to stop. And if it's going to stop, then we can stop. And I think it's an important development.
And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. We're going to UAE and Qatar, and that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I'd tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that out. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be here. Mark, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'm on the edge of my seat, actually, for the big announcement. But thank you for your hospitality and above all, for your leadership. You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker. Securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world. And I've been elected with my colleagues here, with the help of my colleagues here. I'm going to spread the credit to transform Canada with a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders, again on fentanyl. Much greater focus on defense and security, securing the Arctic and developing the Arctic. And the history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together. And I look forward to, addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can move forward.
That's great. Very nice. Thank you very much. It's a very nice statement.
Mr. President,
Anybody?
Is USMCA dead?
No, it was actually very effective, and it's still very effective, but people have to follow it. So, that's been a problem. People haven't followed it. But it was a transitional step a little bit, and as you know, it terminates fairly shortly. It gets renegotiated very shortly. But I thought it was a very positive step from NAFTA. NAFTA was the worst trade deal in the history of our country, probably in the history of the world. And this was a transitional deal, and we'll see what happens. We're going to be starting to possibly renegotiate that if it's even necessary. I don't know that it's necessary anymore, but it served a very good purpose. And the biggest purpose it served is we got rid of NAFTA. NAFTA was a very unfair deal for the United States, a very, very terrible deal. It should have never been made. It was made many years ago, but it should have never been made.
Canada and the United States, would you like to see your first trade deal be with Canada, our neighbors in the world?
I would love that. Look, I have a lot of respect for this man, and I watched him come up in a sense through the ranks when he wasn't given much of a chance, and he ran a really great campaign. He did a really great debate. I think that debate was very helpful. I was going to raise my hand. I don't know if that's good or bad. I shouldn't say that. That might hurt you. But no, he ran a really great election, I thought. And yeah, something could happen. Something could happen. Yeah, please.
What's the top concession you want out of Canada? The top concession you want out of Canada?
Concession?
Yes,
Friendship.
but that's not a concession.
No, we're going to be friends with Canada. Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place to me. I know so many people that live in Canada. My parents had relatives that lived in Canada, my mother in particular. And no, I love Canada. I have a lot of respect for the Canadians. Wayne Gretzky, I mean, how good, the great one. You happen to have a very, very good hockey player right here on the Capitals, who I have a lot of. He is a big, tough cookie too. He just broke the record, and he's a great guy. And you know, we had the team here, and I got to know a lot of the players. But now Canada is a very special place. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, and Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to get your response to this too. Mr. President, you have said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, you know, as a real estate developer, you know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, you know, I do feel it's much better for Canada. But we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway, because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage, because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, you know, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the President just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the President has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
True. And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation, because Mark knew, you know, they were low, and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
What would it take to get the tariffs off of Canada?
Well, we'll be talking about different things. Like, you know, we want to protect our automobile business, and so does Mark. But we want to make the automobiles, and we want to, you know, we have a tremendous abundance of energy, more than any country. We have, just in Alaska alone, Anwar has been reopened now. Anwar is probably the largest find anywhere in the world. They say it's larger than Saudi Arabia. I don't know, but it's a lot. But we have tremendous amounts of energy. Other countries don't. We're both lucky in that way. They have energy, we have energy. We have more than we can ever use, and more than we could ever sell, actually, and you have the same thing. So we're two countries that are very lucky. If you look at China, they don't have that. You know, it's a big disadvantage. Other countries, most countries don't have, you know, most countries don't have that. So Canada and us, we have a lot of advantages over other places.
When you consider what Mr. Carney just said, that Canada is not for sale, does this make the discussion a little more difficult to start on?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, time will tell. It's only time. But I say never say never. I've had many, many things that were not doable, and they ended up being doable, and only doable in a very friendly way. But if it's to everybody's benefit, you know, Canada loves us, and we love Canada. That's, I think, the number one thing that's important. But we'll see. I mean, over time, we'll see what happens. China.
I was hoping you could clarify something. Earlier this morning in Capitol Hill, Secretary Bessent said that there have been no negotiations yet with China. You have said something different.
They want to meet, and they're doing no business right now. And those ships are turning around in the Pacific Ocean. Big turn. Those are big ships. Those ships take about 10 miles to turn. And, you know, we lost $1 trillion to China on trade because of an incompetent president that we had who preceded me, grossly incompetent. You're finding it out more and more now. And by not trading, we're losing nothing. So we're saving $1 trillion. It's a lot. But they want to negotiate, and they want to have a meeting, and we'll be meeting with them at the right time.
But you haven't met with them yet.
I have not met with them, no, of course. You would know if I met. I'd tell you. They want to meet, but, you know, we are right now. Look, they're suffering greatly. Their economy is suffering greatly because they're not doing trade with the U.S. And they made most of their money off the U.S. Don't kid yourself. They don't make the money off other countries like this. And they were making. We had a trade imbalance. We had a deficit, or they had a surplus. Another way of saying it, of more than $1 trillion. Think of it, more than $1 trillion. And because of 145%, that's the only reason. But because of they have now 145% tariff. There's no trading. You can't trade with 145%. We are, therefore, making, in a certain way, I guess, $1.1 trillion. In other words, we're not losing $1.1 trillion. Our deficit is much better. When I started, I say we were losing billions of dollars a day on trade. That's rapidly turning around. We looked at numbers this morning. So we were losing, the United States during Biden was losing more than, I won't even give you numbers because they're so embarrassing, but billions of dollars a day on trade. Those numbers are rapidly turning between the tariffs. Don't forget, we're now getting 25% on cars, 25% on aluminum, 25% on steel, and maybe more importantly, massive numbers of companies are moving into the United States. Honda, we have tremendous, the car companies are moving in at levels we've never seen before. The biggest investment ever made in the United States is being made right now. Trillions of dollars. I would say we could be at $9 trillion. You could go back to other presidents. They haven't had $1 trillion for their entire term. Look at Biden. He had bad numbers. People were leaving. They weren't coming in. They were leaving with Biden. And he didn't know the difference. The only thing he knew is people coming in. You know who they were? Illegal immigrants, okay, from prisons, from mental institutions, from all sorts of places that weren't good, from gangs, from Venezuela. They were coming in, and they were criminals and murderers. 11,888 people that murdered, and at least half of them murdered more than one person. This is what Biden led into our country. I'm bringing in big companies. We have Apple is investing $500 billion. We have Jensen, as you know, is going to be 500 biggest chip maker, or chip thinker, I call him. He's really a thinker more than a maker. But we also have the maker, Mr. Wei. I get to know them all in the last, it was a cram course. But they're all moving into America because of the tariffs. And I don't think people have appreciated it. Some people do. Some of the smart people do. So we have more money coming in. It's really an amazing thing. We have more money being invested in the United States now than at any time ever before in our history, and it's not even close. And I think the real number could be 9 or 10 trillion. We don't know everybody that's doing it. We have many. I just heard about a plant that's being built right now, a very, very top-of-the-line company, and they didn't come to the White House. They're just doing it because they're making it because if they build here, there are no tariffs. And this is the big market. This is the market. That sets us apart from it. This is the market where everyone wants to be. Now, if I didn't come here and do this, all of a sudden we wouldn't be the market where everyone wants to be. So we're able to do it in time. But we're going to have a great announcement. And I'm not necessarily saying it's on trade, because going to the beginning, we're going to have a great announcement over the next few days, an announcement that will be so incredible, so positive. And I'm not saying, I don't want you to think it's necessarily on trade. Just to finish, we also have a situation, because everyone says, when are you going to sign deals? We don't have to sign deals. We could sign 25 deals right now, Howard, if we wanted. We don't have to sign deals. They have to sign deals with us. They want a piece of our market. We don't want a piece of their market. We don't care about their market. They want a piece of our market. So we can just sit down, and I'll do this at some point over the next 2 weeks, and I'll sit with Howard and Scott and with our great vice president, who has done a really good job. We have some good news to report on a lot of fronts, but JD will be there and Marco, and we're going to sit down and we're going to put very fair numbers down, and we're going to say, here's what this country, what we want, and congratulations, we have a deal. And they'll either say, great, and they'll start shopping, or they'll say, not good, we're not going to do it. I said, that's okay, you don't have to shop. Now, we may think, well, they have a right, you know, that maybe we were a little bit wrong, so we'll adjust it. And then you people will say, oh, it's so chaotic. No, we're flexible. But we'll sit down, and we'll, at some point, in some cases, we'll sign some deals. It's much less important than what I'm talking about. For the most part, we're just going to put down a number and say, this is what you're going to pay to shop. And it's going to be a very fair number. It'll be a low number. We're not looking to hurt countries. We want to help countries. We want to be friendly with countries. But you keep writing about deals. When are we going to sign? When? It's very simple. We're going to say, in some cases, we want you to open up your country. In some cases, we want you to drop your tariffs. I mean, India, as an example, has one of the highest tariffs in the world. We're not going to put up with that. And they've agreed already to drop it. They'll drop it to nothing. They've already agreed. They would have never done that for anybody else but me. So we're going to put down some numbers, and we're going to say our country is open for business. And they're going to come in, and they're going to pay for the privilege of being able to shop in the United States of America. It's very simple. It's very simple. So I wish they'd keep, stop asking, how many deals are you signing this week? Because one day we'll come and we'll give you 100 deals. And they don't have to sign. All they have to do is say, oh, we'll start sending our ships right now to pick up whatever we want or to bring whatever we want. It's very, very simple. And I think my people haven't made it clear. We will sign some deals, but much bigger than that is we're going to put down the price that people are going to have to pay to shop in the United States. Think of us as a super luxury store, a store that has the goods. You're going to come and you're going to pay a price, and we're going to give you a very good price. We're going to make very good deals. And in some cases, we'll adjust. But that's where it is. And we've been ripped off by everybody for 50 years, and we're just not going to do that anymore. We can't do that. And we can't let any country do that to us. We're just not going to do it anymore.
On the Houthis, can you tell us a bit more about the deal that you've reached with the Houthis?
No, it's not a deal. They've said, please don't bomb us anymore, and we're not going to attack your ships.
And where did you hear about that?
It doesn't matter where I hear it. The very good source, I could tell you. Very, very good source. Would you say, Marco? I would say pretty good, right, JD? A very good source. No, they don't want to be. They don't want to be. They don't want to be bombed anymore. You know, I sort of thought that would happen. No, behind you, please.
Clarifying something you said on USMCA. Is the U.S. prepared to walk away from that pact?
From what pact?
USMCA.
No. It's fine. It's there. It's good. We use it for certain things. It's there. We have the USMCA is a good deal for everybody. I won't say this about Mark, but I didn't like his predecessor. I didn't like a person that worked for. She was terrible, actually. She was a terrible person. And she really hurt that deal very badly because she tried to take advantage of the deal and she didn't get away with it. You know what I'm talking about. But so, you know, we had a bad relationship having to do with the fact that we disagreed with the way they viewed the deal. And we ended it. You know, we ended that relationship pretty much. The USMCA is great for all countries. It's good for all countries. We do have a negotiation coming up over the next year or so to adjust it or terminate it.
Mr. President.
I'll say a word on USMCA if I may, Mr. President. It is a basis for a broader negotiation. Some things about it are going to have to change. And part of the way you've conducted these tariffs has taken advantage of existing aspects of USMCA. So it's going to have to change. There's other elements that have come, and that's part of what we're going to discuss.
Right.
During the campaign, Prime Minister Carney talked about the American vitriol. How do you react if Canada decided not to shop in the American store as much as before and decided to partner with other countries?
Well, we don't do much business with Canada from our standpoint. They do a lot of business with us. We're at like 4%. And usually those things don't last very long. You know, we have great things, great product. The kind of product we sell, nobody else can sell, including military. Look, we make the best military equipment in the world, and Canada buys our military equipment, which we appreciate. But we make the best military equipment in the world by far. The missiles, the submarines, everything. Everything we have is really top notch. I rebuilt our military during our last term. Stupidly, we gave some away to Afghanistan, which shouldn't have happened. But that was, I think it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. It was just very incompetent people. But if you look, the man that's now the head of our Joint Chiefs, he led the attack on ISIS for me. That's why he's the head of the Joint Chiefs. And Raisin Kane, he was unbelievable. And as you know, we defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. It was supposed to take 5 years. We did it in 3 weeks. And he ran the campaign. I said, I like him. But I knew him before. I went to Iraq, and we agreed to a plan, and that was the plan. And as you know, we did it in record time. So we have, we have the best equipment in the world. We have the best, a lot of things. And but Canada, it does a lot more business with us than we do with Canada. Yeah.
Mr. President, can I ask about your investments, Mr. President? When do you think the investments that you've announced, the trillions, will finally hit economic data this year?
When you're saying about the tariffs?
No, about the investments that you've announced.
Oh, it's hitting right now. Look, they're already starting AI plants. These are not people that look for financing. That's a good thing. You know, in real estate, you get a site, then you have to look for financing. You have to get your zoning. 5 years later, you start building. You get a bank, then the bank's no good. These people have massive amounts of cash. The CHIPS Act was a ridiculous thing because that doesn't get them to build. All we did is hand very wealthy companies money. The CHIPS Act that was done by Biden, billions. We give them billions of dollars. They don't even have to do anything with it. And then if you weren't, if you didn't have, and I don't want to be a wise guy, but if you didn't go with the DEI, if you didn't go with all of the different things, woke, if you weren't woke, you couldn't even use the money. You had to have a certain percentage of this and that and that and that. It's impossible to have. The companies actually complained to me. They said they gave me all this money, but nobody can get these people to do anything. I mean, look, President Obama, and if he wanted help, I'd give him help because I'm a really good builder and I build on time, on budget. He's building his library in Chicago. It's a disaster. And he said something to the effect, I only want DEI, I only want woke. He wants woke people to build it. Well, he got woke people, and they have massive cost overruns. The job is stopped. I don't know. It's a disaster. And I don't like that happening because I think it's bad for the presidency that a thing like that should happen. He's got a library that's a disaster. And he wanted to be very politically correct, and he didn't use good, hard, tough, mean construction workers that I love, Marco. I love those construction workers. But he didn't want construction workers. He wanted people that never did it before. And he's got a disaster in his hands, like millions of dollars, really many millions of dollars over budget. And I would love to help him with it, or somebody else. I could recommend professionals, but it was not built in a professional manner. By the way, nor was in California a little train going from San Francisco to Los Angeles that's being run by Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Did you ever hear of Gavin Newsom? That train is the worst cost overrun I've ever seen. It's like totally out of control. So then they said, all right, we won't go into San Francisco. We'll stop 25 miles short. And we won't go into Los Angeles. We'll stop 25 miles short. It's hundreds of billions of dollars for this stupid project that should have never been built. And then they realized that it would have been a lot less costly if we just gave limousine service back and forth and gave it free. They would have saved hundreds of billions of dollars. They have airplanes that go there for one 1/100th the cost. And they have cars. They have a thing called the highway that goes back and forth that's not fully utilized. And they got involved with this project. And Gavin, you know, I always liked Gavin. I had a good relationship with him. I just got him a lot of water. You know, I sent in people to open up that water because he refused to do it. And we just got him a lot of water. If they would have had that water, and if they would have done what I said to do, they wouldn't have had the fires in Los Angeles. Those fires would have been put out very quickly. But if you think about it, and you got to take a look at this, it's the worst cost overrun I've ever seen. I've watched a lot of stupid people build a lot of stupid things, but that's the worst cost overrun I've ever seen, what's happening between San Francisco and Los Angeles. And you ought to ask about that, because this government is not going to pay. I told our very great new Secretary of Transportation, he's doing a good job, Sean Duffy, I said, we're not going to pay for that thing. They are just, it's out of control. This is something that you don't have things like this. It's not even conceivable. Like 30 times over budget, 30 times. It's the craziest thing and now it's hundreds of, it was supposed to be a simple train. And I think the media should take a look at it. And I'd love him to run for president on the other side. You know, I'd love to see that. But I don't think he's going to be running, because that one project alone, well, that and the fires and a lot of other things, pretty much put him out of the race.
Mr. President, what changes would you like to see to the USMCA? Or what changes would you like to make?
We're going to work on some subtle changes, maybe. I don't even know if we're going to be dealing with the USMCA. We're dealing more with concepts right now. Look, right now, we're doing trade. We have trade. They're paying a tariff on cars and steel and aluminum. And I think we have a baseline of 10% or something like that for the tariffs. But we're getting along very well. Right now, going no further, but we have an agreement. We did something with even parts. You want to discuss that, Howard, with respect to Canada, which helps Canada out?
Sure. So we've made an arrangement with the car companies that 15% of their USMCA parts are included, and then 15% of foreign parts from the manufactured suggested retail price are not tariffed, to help domestic manufacturing really thrive.
So it gave them a chance to be able to build their car parts factories if they're going to. A lot of these companies already have factories, and what they have to do is just fill them out. But they're able to build them in the United States, so we gave them a pretty substantial period of time.
Just to clarify, Mr. President, is there anything the Prime Minister can say to you today to change your mind on tariffing Canada?
Tariffing cars?
Tariffing Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Why not?
Just the way it is.
What's the first state?
Yeah.
If Canadians don't want it, would you respect that?
Sure, I would. But this is not necessarily a one-day deal. This is over a period of time they have to make that decision. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may. If respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation, but we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of, past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically. I assume they can. I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking we want to make them ourselves. I mean, I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But no, I mean, it's hard to justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada militarily, and we always will. We're going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But, it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year, or whatever the number might be? It's a very substantial number. And it's hard for the American taxpayer to say, gee whiz, we love doing that. Thank you very much. We're going to have a very substantial. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Why don't you why did you
Canada is not 50% of
Sir, NATO spending? You comment on Canada's NATO spending? Thanks, guys.
Well, they will continue to speak up quite loudly and try questions. Dina, are you still there?
Wow. Every second of it.
Let me turn down the volume a little bit there. I mean, what a
Yeah,
scene.
yeah. Enough of that.
Look at how small that room is, and they've got all that media in there. They're being shown out right now. Let me get your take first. But what a remarkable, frank conversation between Trump and Carney, revolving around the 51st state in many senses. I think the most headline-worthy point there was when Trump said that he still wanted the 51st state, and Carney said, Canada is not for sale. The response was that time will tell. He still wasn't really willing to let that go. Later on, Carney said again, Canada's views on this will not change, referring to the 51st state. But it doesn't look like Trump was really listening to any of that. It got quite testy at the end with 50%, with the conversation about not needing Canadian cars, not needing Canadian steel. He even referenced the Zelensky confrontation, which was an interesting reference. And then he also very pointedly mentioned Chrystia Freeland, not directly by name, but mentioned
who, by the way, is Mark Carney is the godfather of one of her children. So there's that. Yeah.
And the reference there was regarding the USMCA negotiations, the first time that Chrystia Freeland handled for the Trudeau government. And then he was not very nice about Justin Trudeau, saying that he called him the 51st, he called him the governor of Canada, and that maybe didn't help him in the elections. He seemed to take credit for Carney winning the elections as well, is unusual. But there was a little bit of respect shown, certainly more respect than Trudeau. But that was a pretty tense conversation. I didn't think I didn't feel very friendly vibes out of that, as you were talking about before about the vibes. What's your take?
That had a little bit of everything in it, from what we knew to be Donald Trump's insane rambling, not answering questions, going off on tangents about the fucking Houthis and cars and real estate. And, it's just, so let's just try to cut through all of that stuff. What I watched there was Donald Trump capitulate on national television to Mark Carney and the country of Canada. If you want my take, the vibe from him despite him going on a tangent at the end, and let's just kind of wash all that stuff. You want to take the mood and you want to boil it down into its essence. He was overly complimentary to Mark Carney. He congratulated Mark Carney several times, lied his ass off about watching the debate. He didn't watch the debate, gave himself a little bit of credit, but then completely folded when it came to the 51st state stuff. Completely folded when it came to the USMCA needing to be renegotiated again. He completely folded in the Oval Office, taking this conciliatory tone, saying maybe it takes two to tango. I guess, yeah, you know what? That's okay. Canada's a great country. They're beautiful people. That whole impetus for him wanting to take over Canada fell apart with no cross-examination today, because Donald Trump was literally petrified sitting next to Mark Carney. Petrified. The way he carefully chose his words. Like, he really didn't answer the question about subsidies, which he said was the only question he wanted to ask Mark Carney in the Truth Social post that he put out 5 minutes to Carney going into the Oval Office, where he's like, the only question I'm going to have today is that of consequences, what's up with these subsidies? He didn't ask him the question. He didn't, if that was his only point, he did everything but that, waited till the end of it, called it a deficit before pivoting and going, okay, it's a subsidy. Everything that man has telegraphed for the past 3 months about his tough stance with Canada not only fell apart with no challenging. Mark Carney just corrected the record. And what Mark Carney did in a very short period of time, because he was a prop to Donald Trump in that meeting, that's what he was, sitting there with the Prime Minister of Canada, loved Prime Minister of Canada. He's sitting there using Mark Carney as a prop. But when Mark Carney spoke, he made sure to re-deliver the message. Not only is our military relationship with you over, we're going it alone. Not only is our trade relationship with you over, we've got other relationships. And we're going to get busy building Canada out. And then he corrected the record with Donald Trump about wanting to be the 51st state. There was no push from Donald Trump. It was, I guess it takes two to tango, and Canada doesn't want that. And I still love Canada. It's a beautiful place. Rambled about real estate. But what we watched there was exactly what I knew would happen. Under any kind of duress, where you're faced with a serious fucking individual, Donald Trump dies. And that is exactly what happened. So towards the end of it, he put on a bit of a tough guy stance, tried to do the and went on these incredible tangents. Like, for a guy like Mark Carney to be sitting next to Donald Trump, watching that whole thing happen, he has to be walking out of the Oval Office right now going, A, guy's insane, probably has dementia, but B, is that it? All of that bluster, and that's fucking it? What a disaster for Donald Trump today. He fell to his knees, and Donald Trump kissed our Canadian asses today because he had to. That's what I got out of that.
I think that the vibe sense of what you're putting out there is right. I think at the end of the day, Trump needs this, and Trump was seen to need this deal and need this conversation. But I also think, he was quite forceful about why it would be a good idea in his mind, for Canada to become the 51st state. And Carney was very clear about how that was not going to happen. That some places are not for sale. It was a good line, and it's all that really needed to be said. For all the bluster of Donald Trump, Carney was very diplomatic and clear in a very understated way, which is the Canadian way, of course. Nevertheless, I think at the end there, it felt pretty frosty to me. I did not feel that at the end there it was kumbaya in any way. I did not feel like it was surrender. I felt at the end there that he was saying, we don't need, and a lot of this is about Trump's mood a lot of the times, right? It's his mood that matters.
You saw his mood change in that press conference too, right?
And I think the reason why Carney was very complimentary about Trump in the beginning, calling him a transformational president, talking about having similar goals in terms of rebuilding the economy, the security, and all those other things. Yeah. These are all really, kissing the ring, as it were.
He dude. He pet him on the head. That was strategic. It was a little head tap, like, "Oh, you're so good at this. You're really good." And I want to point, and here's how I know that is because that was part of the strategy. You blow the guy up. You tell him how transformative he is. You use these generic terms, and then you deliver the news, which is exactly what he did. You're interested in security. You're interested in your border. We're interested in our border. You're a transformative president. He didn't say what way he was transforming
He said
the
it was
United
transformative
States.
in terms of international security, which is an interesting statement, considering that everyone's terrified. Donald Trump.
Well, dude, do you know what that means? But
it was
hold
about
it. Read
NATO. It was about NATO. It was ultimately a NATO.
Yes, yeah. It was read between those lines, right? And then you read between the lines of what he said when he was talking about because this was like I was giving it the old fist pump during this portion where Donald Trump said, "Yeah, we protect Canada. We're gonna," and kissed our asses again. You notice that when he was like, "Got to pay us for our military for the past 3 months." He's like, "Well, it's not even about money. We'll take care of you forever, but you do use our military," which was also another lie. And then Mark Carney interjected and he said, "Okay, I actually have you to thank for Canada rebuilding its military."
Yes, that was a very good one.
And Donald Trump was like, "Oh, thank you very much." Like, it's dude, that was a master class in how to handle him, where you Trojan horse these greased up comments by choosing your language carefully, calling him transformative, saying he's transformed international security. That wasn't, "Hey, way to go." That was
well put line, which is basically you're terrified you're going to attack us all. So we're building up our defenses. I think the comments about Chrystia Freeland was really telling because, Trump is such a retribution guy. He's always got these vengeful things in his brain. And he obviously knows that Chrystia Freeland ate the American negotiators for lunch when they had that USMCA initial negotiation. It was Canada won that round. There's no doubt about it. Now he's still prosecuting that case and saying that he's got, something personally against Chrystia Freeland. That is so uncool. I mean, and he's so
just didn't like him.
Dude.
But you know what? I think he used that as a way to kind of get out of Canada's jail-free card. Like I think for a guy like Donald Trump, he really tried to get out from underneath the anti-Canada sentiment today. Like, that's what I saw. He really did. He was overly complimentary. And I think he used the fact that, hey, I like you, but I didn't like your predecessor, and I didn't like that woman. That woman put together the USM. Yeah, that woman put together the USMCA and made sure that Canada wouldn't operate in a deficit with the United States. So she effectively authored this thing that has been pissing him off, that he's been using performatively. And I think the only reason why he threw both of them under the bus today was to say, "Hey, listen, it's all good now, though, because you're on the scene." You know what I mean? I think it was one of those like capitulatory, backhanded comments because Trump can never, ever, ever be vulnerable in a moment or say, "Yeah, you know what? Maybe I got it wrong." He always has to give himself some kind of ego out. And that's what I heard today,
100%.
Above all else, and included in that comment, Zev.
It's interesting. He took credit for the Carney's victory at the beginning. And he actually said, "I can't take credit for it." And it's like, that's that ego stroking, that self-ego stroking is insane. That he needs to find himself the winner in every situation. But I do think what you're saying is absolutely correct about him looking needy for a deal and him needing to get out from under this anti-Canada sentiment quite quickly. There is no sense coming out of that he's interested in attacking Canada militarily anymore. I mean, we do not get that sense at all. He argued quite coherently about a 51st state, although it would have been inaccurate about taxes being lowered and all those kinds of things. But
and then like this imaginary line and all the real estate, and then in the middle of it wanted to tell everybody how artistic he was. He was off the hook today, Zeb.
He was in a mood.
he was more insane today. And I think because he knows what's riding on this. And I think he had to have a good look with the Prime Minister of Canada today. But he also had to try to strike this, I don't know, some fucked up tone of like still being the guy, right? Well, he's not the guy. The world knows he's not the guy. And then watching him defer to guys like Nutlick and Rubio at the start and Nutlick and listening to them stumble, trying to explain. And there was one point which I thought was magical. There were several magical parts. I'm going to put all this and all the highlights in a blog post. I was taking a ton of notes as we were working, so you can get it at Substack. But what struck me was how he was talking about, prior to him being asked, is there anything Carney can say that would get you to lift the tariffs? He's like, no, that's just because it's the way it is. He's so stupid on top of that. But there was one point where he goes to Nutlick and he's like, so like, as I understand it, we have like 10% tariffs on things or something. Like, he doesn't even know what he's tariffing. He doesn't know the amounts, doesn't know the cost, and he certainly doesn't understand that this is a tax on the people. But like that was shocking to me. This is the president of the United States inviting the Prime Minister of Canada down, rambled during the intro, had no idea what tariffs were what, rambled about the Houthis in the middle of it, which was a lie, by the way.
I don't know. Is it, I don't know. We don't know anything. Is it? Is that just a
there's no
smokescreen?
report on the Houthis like stopping fighting America. So and then I don't know if you missed this part. He kept pimping this mystery announcement that was going to make everybody happy. That wasn't trade related, but wasn't allowed to tell anybody what it was. But they might tell everybody on Tuesday or Thursday or maybe Monday before they leave. So like that was, dude, that was insane. That made Trump look weak. That made Trump look like he has no idea what he's doing. It made Trump look like everything he's done to this point has been performative. That made Mark Carney look like a superstar.
Yeah.
That put Canada in the driver's seat today, where you got Mark Carney literally standing there with a carnival barker and surgically correcting him, surgically insulting him, making it sound like he was congratulating him, making it sound like, and then at the end of it, Trump does what Trump does because he gets super tired of everybody's bullshit, and he's like, yeah, it's the subsidies and lies about the subsidies, and then says, okay, well, we'll see you later. Like that was the end of the press conference. It was the wildest. It was the wildest shit I've seen in a long time from a perspective of, and I'm not talking about it just being wild. I'm talking about it meeting every single mark. If I was to project, which we talked about yesterday, how that would have gone, it met every mark. Donald Trump is a paper tiger. The emperor has zero clothes. And he sat next to a serious guy who's in charge of a very serious country, who has told him no, who sat there and told him no, specifically several times in surgical ways, that Donald Trump didn't know whether to shit or shine his shoes. So we just rambled about the dumbest crap ever.
I mean, it's certainly the most effective part of that is Carney's going to walk out of that is going to say, well, we got rid of the 51st state thing. I mean, and that happened very openly in public and before the actual negotiations get going. And he did it in a very classy way, in the way that Carney's able to weave a sentence and that Donald Trump just isn't able to do that with the English language. He said in real estate, there are certain places that are never for sale. And then he referred to Buckingham Palace. He referred to the White House. And then he said, Canada is not for sale, or implied that at least. And then Trump said, never say never. I mean, that exchange in itself brought in the King of Canada by bringing in Buckingham Palace, because he knows that the King has told Trump on several occasions, no, you can't have Canada. So there's that conversation that was by sneaking in Buckingham Palace that was interesting. But then also saying that the White House is not for sale, which of course is completely ironic considering Donald Trump is busy selling every piece of the White House and every piece of the administration and everything he can lay his hands on to anybody who will pay for it.
Oh yeah,
so for sale. I think those very well crafted lines by Carney, and then of course basically pointedly saying, well, you might be corrupt, while you might be completely selling out your people. Our country's not for sale. We're not selling out to you, and you've heard it from the King too. I think that's basically the coded part of that statement that he made there. And what a way to say, no, we're not interested in 51st state. And then he says it again later, he says, we're pretty firm in this stuff. Canada's not going to open up a negotiation on 51st state. You can keep pitching it, but we're not interested. And now the negotiations are going to start. But, Carney was quite quiet during the whole thing, except for those very well-structured lines. And now we shall see what happens in the actual talks. I mean, they'll come out later and have a statement. I think Carney's going to have a lot more to say at the end of that. And it does seem like the USMCA will be renegotiated on Canada's terms, not on Trump's terms. So to all, your points are all very valid, and your analysis is always spot on. The ending was a little bit friction-filled, and that's because Trump, you're right, was a little annoyed, I think. I was a little like, that may hurt the negotiations going forward. I mean, I think at the end of the day,
just got told. Dude just got told, and he got insulted and thought he was being congratulated. Like that. That is what I
they stand out, right? I mean, there's just two lines. The transformational on international security is a very well phrased line, and the other one about the real estate, very well done. Very well done.
I gotta tell you, I'm like marinating in what we just watched. Outside of this, and I don't say this lightly, the schizophrenic or bipolar nature of Donald Trump and what he wants, what he tells you what he wants, how he keeps people on their toes. We just watched one of the greatest performances in the presence of that moron that you will ever see.
Yeah.
There was no capitulation. The glad handing was side-handed glad handing. It was a statement. It was Mark Carney's posture was impeccable the entire time. Sat up straight, met him, mirrored his like forward stance. Trump slowly started to slouch at some point.
Oh yeah.
And there was also a point in that, like, I don't know if you watch it. He's
Diet Coke and McDonald's.
And there was a point in there where he realized that he can't fuck this up. And it was when Mark Carney stood in for Trump, who was rambling. He's like, if I may, we're not here to do a deal. This is the basis of a longer term kind of operation, and we're going to try and figure that out. But he pointedly, several times, made sure that every American, the entire Trump regime, and Donald Trump himself, in what will be one of the most watched interviews in this country's history, that Canada is not for sale. The people of Canada have spoken, and he's there to deliver that message, and it will never, ever happen. And it doesn't matter how many Trump says, never say never, because those things are not about, for Trump, they're not about getting that done. They're not about Canada becoming the 51st state. It's about dominance over the conversation. It's about saving face at this point because he lost. He lost over the course of a month and a half when Mark Carney said, our relationship with you is over. And then he lost today. Those are just the battles prior to the war. Today was a complete laying down, surrender, white flag from the foxhole. I will do whatever you want, sir. Mark Carney, just save me from myself here, please. And he also had to maintain the perspective or the idea, the performative idea that he's the guy. And that's what I took out of that. I can't wait to write this and put it on Substack.
We're going to do that. But,
that was incredible. Incredible.
I think to your point there, the other thing that really stood out to me is when Carney told him that, 50% of American cars are made in Canada, come from Canada. That was and then he says, well, we don't want any Canadian cars, but, missing the point that America's cars are 50% of them are made in Canada. That's all that stuff is coming from Canada. And again, the nuance is missing for Trump. He just has this idea that he's at a department store and he's got a market that he's trying to sell off for his own profit taking. But he's missing the point that, in fact, the things he's selling that he thinks are American are only half American, and that they need Canada for all those things and for many other reasons.
When he referred to the United States, think of us as a luxury department store. I'm like, fuck, dude,
no
department stores.
America's
don't exist. But what I was stupidity he's insane. But I loved it today. And the other thing, and I think that this should be noted, is that again, not once his main purpose was to find out why Canada is subsidized by the United States. He only got to it at the very end, not in the form of a question, and got real hard about it at the end, and then ended the entire press conference so nobody could fact check him. So Mark Carney wouldn't have the ability to say, actually, let me explain to you how subsidies and tariffs and deficits, trade deficits work. And that was the only thing that was missing from today. Like if I that was 10 out of 10. It could have been 12 out of 10 with a hardcore fact check for the free world about Donald Trump's clear lie about the subsidy that he says his country pays Canada
it's not really
to,
a
quote, stay in business.
Yeah, and look, there's no doubt about it. Carney dodged some bullets there, and he didn't take the bait on Chrystia Freeland. He didn't take the bait on Trudeau. There's a lot of things that Trump tried to get Carney's temperature up on those, but he didn't. He didn't respond to those, and that's also very impressive. That he had the cool understanding to know that that's what Trump was going to do to him, and didn't do it. We should probably end this because in just 50 minutes from now, I'm going to be live with Olga, and then I'm going to be back live with you at 3:00. So we have a busy day. You're going to write your story. I'm going to write my story. Thank you, everyone, for watching on 2 different lives today. We were trying something different today. The many people on Dean Blundell's chat, thank you for being here, and thank you for being here. And for those people who checked it out on narativ.org, that's great. We're going to try the same thing at 3. So we'll be doing 2. What is it? But let's make us buy what? By feeding? I don't know.
I'm not sure what you're trying to get at, but I think what you're saying is we're going to do 2 a day. We're going to do 2 today.
Yes,
right?
But we're also going to say that you're going to get a stream on yours, on your Substack. I'm going to get a stream on my Substack. They're 2 different streams. It
multi-stream.
I don't know. I was trying to make a joke.
I missed it. I'm still buzzing. I'm still buzzing over that presser.
Buzz into your typewriter and your keyboard, and I'm looking forward to your Substack.
Oh, well.
Later on.
You could get on that fax machine and get that story in.
Would you please? Put on the wire service. We will see you all later on at 3:00 for the 5 stack, and at 2:00 with Olga for the Trump attorney tracker. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you later on.